Is the ideal Slurpee like Coca-Cola and then just a little cherry on top? I need your expert opinion on this.
The ideal Slurpee, based on the learned experience of millions of customers, is to do a multi-blend.
Yeah, okay. So
Where
is
you
it
put
layered?
just go every one of the
Oh, every single one?
Oh, yeah.
Just like boom, boom, boom?
boom, boom, boom. Yeah. The other thing you'll find, it's very popular on Friday nights to take a Slurpee in there and put a little...
I never thought you could do
Yeah.
the like pina colada.
It's like a
and
frozen margarita.
Today, we are joined by Jim Keys. Jim Keys is a global business leader, philanthropist, educator, artist, musician, commercial pilot, and modern Renaissance man. From 2000 to 2005, he was the CEO of popular convenience chain 7-Eleven, and then from 2007 to 2011, he served as the chairman and CEO of Blockbuster. His other business interests cover a broad range of industries, including retail, consumer products, technology, new space, energy, and advanced nuclear. Passionate about aerospace and aviation, Keys has been a pilot for 40 years. In addition to his corporate roles, Keys is also a dedicated philanthropist. He founded the Education is Freedom Foundation, which provides college scholarships to hardworking students. Keys also serves on numerous civic boards, including the American Red Cross National Board of Governors, the Cooper Institute, and the Dallas Education Foundation. His commitment to both business and philanthropy make him a true leader in his field. All right, Jim, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, thanks. Great
When
to
did
be
you
here.
make the decision to go by Jim and not James?
I was actually Jimmy growing up. Yeah, and I can't pull off James. I did it for the book.
Oh, yeah, you did do it for the book.
Yeah, but I can't really pull it off in real life because people look at me and say, yeah, James, come on.
You're not a James.
Yeah, you're not a
Get
James.
out of here with
Get
that.
out of here. You're Jimmy.
Okay, so I'm taking full permission to call you Jimmy from here on out.
You got it.
Okay, so before moving forward, I do have a preliminary question for you, and it's to make sure that you're qualified to be on the show. And if you answer incorrectly, you do indeed have to leave.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, the question is, do you know what you're doing?
Hell no.
See, guys?
Do I qualify?
Yes, you qualify.
Good.
CEO, decades-long CEO, no clue. No clue, just like the rest of us. Okay, great. So now I want to get into a little rapid fire round, and this is just so we can get to know where you're from as like a human being.
Shoot.
First question is, where did you grow up?
Small town Massachusetts.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
you're a New Englander.
I am. Outside of Worcester, a small town called Grafton I was born in and went to high school in Millbury right next door.
What did your parents do for a living growing up?
They kind of struggled. My dad was mom and dad were both factory workers,
Okay.
and yeah, they worked pretty hard.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why I'm here today, because they didn't want me to have the same life that they had.
The next question, very fitting. Did you go to college? And if so, what did you study?
I did. I went to college. I studied, of all things, political science because I wanted to be a lawyer, I thought.
Okay.
I actually applied pre-med, believe it or not. I was clueless. I mean, you talk about, do you know what you want to do? I was clueless. So I literally thought, I'm going to be the best thing I could be, maybe a doctor, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't get in early admission pre-med, so just like that, I switched it. I said, I'll be a lawyer instead.
Oh, that's great. Okay, and you are not a lawyer today.
No.
So that didn't happen. At what point did you change your mind?
I was intercepted just before going to law school. I had a professor, a history professor, who took me aside and said, where are you going to school? And I said, well, I've been accepted at Villanova Law School, and I had a couple of other law schools, waiting for the best law school I could get into. And he said, please do me a favor, do not go to law school. You're going to be an awful lawyer.
He said that?
Yeah.
Why? You don't like paperwork or?
No, he had me in class for 2 years, and
Okay.
he saw me as a more of a business person.
Yeah.
But to me, I had no clue.
Yeah.
Business to me was the factory, and I didn't want any part of that.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could ever be an owner of a business.
What was your first job ever?
Flipping burgers at McDonald's.
Do you remember how much you got paid at McDonald's?
Buck, I think I may have started $1.25. I think I was making $1.75 when I left.
Okay, that's interesting because I looked up the price of a Big Mac in like 1975.
Yeah.
It was like $1.60.
Yeah.
So you're making like a Big Mac an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to look at it.
That's
I
interesting.
didn't make much money.
And then what is your current job?
I am an entrepreneur, I guess. I dabble in a lot of different things, buy and sell companies, do a lot of startup advisory work with companies, and some board work.
Okay. And so you're quote unquote retired.
No, I can't use that word. That old people do that.
Yeah.
No, I'll never retire. I love work. I love the business world and the challenge of companies and getting engaged. And so I would never, I don't think, call myself retired.
Yeah. It's funny. I think of that too. I'm like, I don't want a day where I have nothing to do. I love having projects and doing things. Like sometimes people will say, I want to make so much money that I never have to work again. And I'm like, I want to make so much money that I can choose on what to work.
That's exactly right. Right. And ultimately, it's not about money. It's about freedom. And that's a mistake a lot of people make. They say, I want to make enough money to then not do anything. No, you want to make enough money that you have the freedom to do what you want. But it's very, very different.
Do you like your current job?
Of course. Yeah, because I have freedom.
Yeah.
I love freedom.
And you're spending your freedom with me.
Absolutely.
What an honor. Okay, so let's go back to college. So you decided to go to college. Were you one of the first people in your family to go to college?
The only person in my family, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, none of my brothers and sisters had the opportunity. My mom and dad both dropped out of grammar school. I think my dad made it through about the 6th grade, and my mom something pretty similar. But if you put a timestamp on it, back then things were very different. They had a really tough life.
Yeah.
And they just didn't have that kind of opportunity. So, but they wanted better for me, and they didn't know what to tell me, but they did tell me just somehow in those books is the answer. So the more you study and the more you know.
Okay, so they wanted you to go to college.
No, they didn't. College, I don't recall ever being in the vocabulary.
It wasn't really an option.
It wasn't really considered to be an option, nor was it something that they even understood.
Yeah.
Because their life was so different. But they wanted the best for me. They didn't know what that meant, but they did want the best for me.
So you got your MBA from Columbia here in New York.
I did.
So you were living in New York in the late 70s?
I was, the Upper West Side, yeah.
That must have been really cool.
Well, it was pretty cool. It was pretty interesting. I was literally, I mean, I'm a country kid growing up in small town Mass, and I'm like driving into New York, trying to find a place. I couldn't afford a place. So I would literally drive back. Now, gas was probably 30 cents a gallon or something. This is 100 years ago. So I was driving. I literally, for the first month, commuted back and forth until I could find a place. And I finally found this this place is at the Upper West Side. It was called the College Residence Hotel.
Oh gosh, that sounds awful.
Oh yeah. You can't even imagine the cast of characters in this place. A lot of evening workers there. A lot of first generation people that had just come to the United States. It was quite interesting living there.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But it ended up being a great experience because it was very cheap. It was literally rooms by the day.
Oh. That sounds very sketchy. New York City.
It was really sketchy. Yeah, it was really sketchy. But they ended up giving me a great rate for a month at a time.
Do you remember how much it was?
Yeah, I don't. It was probably, I don't know, maybe $300 a month or something.
Oh my gosh! Do you want to know what my rent is?
I can't even imagine. Yeah, today. But it ended up being such an interesting experience that my buddies, many of whom were actually living in New York, I had a friend living in the Upper East Side, and really nice places. They wanted to come and live there, so we ended up with 2 or 3 apartments.
Oh, fun!
Yeah, we had a little bit of a group of friends that I'm still very, very close to today. And we all live together in this college residence hotel.
So, you graduate, you're optimistic about everything. What's your first job out of your MBA?
First job, I had this internship down in Houston, Texas with one of the big oil companies, and they brought me down. Fabulous experience. I'd never been to Texas. I'd barely been outside of New England.
I know.
Yeah, I know. And so I was total fish out of water down there. Yeah. But had a blast and learned a lot. And at the end of the summer, they actually offered me a full-time role. But it was a fabulous experience. I worked for the chief financial officer there in Pittsburgh at headquarters for Gulf. And it was a great experience.
And you were at that company for a while?
Well, at that company, I was only there for about 5 years because what happened is Gulf was trying to acquire another company called City Service, Citgo. was the downstream.
Okay.
And they got in a little bit of trouble. They tried to acquire the company. They were weakened. Wall Street didn't like it. And so it turns out that Chevron acquired Gulf.
Okay.
And I ended up on the merger team. I'm out in San Francisco wondering if this is going to be my next opportunity. And 7-Eleven, ironically, the Southland Corporation had acquired the downstream Citgo. And one of the people that I worked with at Gulf came in to be CEO of that company after the acquisition. He grabbed me and said, come be our head of strategic planning for this new entity. So that's how I got to 7-Eleven.
So looking back, you were like, yeah, it was strategic. But in the moment, you were just kind of making the best move that you could in the moment.
In the moment, you know, you go through one of these crises and you think, why me? You know, I had a good career. Things were going great. Now all of a sudden this company goes through a merger and the new people are saying, you know, we don't even know how you got to this job, but you're going to have to pay your dues, son.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Some long hours.
Long hours. But in any time that there's a challenge, anytime there's a crisis, what I've found throughout my life, from the time I was a little kid, is that if you can power through and keep your head up instead of letting it get you down, which a lot of people do, that there's likely to be another opportunity on the other side.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So you have a good attitude, you're keeping your best foot forward, and you end up as CFO of 7-Eleven. So you climbed the ranks at 7-Eleven. You weren't brought in externally as a CEO.
I did. No, not at all. No, but I came in at a good level. They brought me in to be the head of strategic planning for a subsidiary for the gasoline division. We sold that division, and they asked me to stay with the company to now run the retail gasoline operations. Okay. So I went from planning and finance to operations for the first time. Yeah, no idea what I was doing.
Why did they do that? Why were they like, let's take this guy and put him over there?
Yeah, it was pretty bold. A big part of it was because 7-Eleven and the Southland Corporation, the parent company at the time, didn't really know the petroleum business, the energy business. Okay. I came from a big oil company, so therefore I must know the oil business. Yeah, okay. And it was very fortunate that they trusted me with the operations, but in hindsight, I was very young, very inexperienced, didn't know nothing about operations.
And you were just like, I totally can do this.
I've got this.
I can pull it
off.
I've got this. You didn't let anybody see you sweat.
No, bring it on. Bring it on.
Okay, so you're
going to hear a common theme here.
Yeah, seriously, I know. We're definitely learning
change, confidence, right?
Adaptability.
Yeah.
So you climb the ranks at 7-Eleven and you eventually make your way to CEO. Yep. How did that happen? Like, did they just come to you and they were like, hey, do you want to be the new CEO of 7-Eleven?
No, the journey, a lot of people have asked about the journey, and everybody's journey is different. Every company is different. The path you take. What I found is the more the more flexible I am. I mentioned I went from finance into operations. Well, then I went back into finance. And then I went back into operations. And most people end up in a vertical or in a role, and then they stay in that through their whole career. What I found is by being flexible enough to move back and forth in different roles, I learned more. And it ultimately positioned me so that I had sat in about every chair in the company. I was head of marketing, I was head of strategy, I was head of finance. I ultimately became the head of operations. So when it became time to choose a new CEO, they could go to the outside or they could pick this young, inexperienced guy, but a guy who had sat and had been in virtually every role in the company.
How did you actually do that, though? Because I think a lot of people do get pigeonholed, and that's a big problem.
They do.
So how do you say, hey, I've never done marketing before, but I would love to be the head of marketing?
Yeah, I was bold.
Yeah, okay.
I was. And I'll share an anecdote. When I was doing that internship as a kid, they brought me to Pittsburgh and introduced me to the CEO. We had lunch with the CEO and the chairman of Gulf Oil Corporation. I was just an intern. What did I know? Yeah. But we had this fancy lunch, and they said, well, how was your summer? And there were 5 or 6 guys, a couple guys from Harvard, Wharton, Columbia, me. And they got to me, and everybody was saying, oh, what a wonderful summer. And I said, well, gentlemen, I think you've got a G&A problem. I go out to lunch and I come back and all these guys are sitting behind their Wall Street Journal taking a nap in the afternoon after their 2-martini lunch. Times were a little different back then. And you could hear the air just get sucked out of the room. Like, I can't believe he just said that. But they took me aside after the lunch and said, you're right. We've got a G&A problem. Why don't you come help us fix it? Go back, get your MBA, and we'll hire you full time.
I love that.
It was fabulous, but that emboldened me and made me so much more confident that that's what leaders need. They need candor. They need openness. So how did I get from one job to the other at 7-Eleven? You'll love this. One day they were struggling financially. And I knew it needed to be done. No one wanted to do it. Again, we needed to cut G&A at that time. So I drafted a letter to the chairman.
The
Worked
audacity.
once.
I love it.
Why not? I said, here's what I believe we need to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Change this department, cut that expense, blah, 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 blah. And I laid out a plan, just one person's opinion. And I laid it out like that. This is just my opinion about what needs to be done. He called me into his office and he said, can you do this? I said, I can do this.
Like, absolutely I can.
Absolutely I can. I ended up as CFO of the company.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you just had the audacity.
Had the audacity.
I love that. And I think anybody who's ever gotten anywhere has to have the audacity. And it takes a risk of being rejected or a risk of failure. I'm sure there's plenty of times where you put your head out there and got slapped.
I could have been fired if my boss found out that I had done something so bold.
Yeah, because you kind of went over.
Yeah.
How was that received?
Well, ultimately, I was actually not fired, but I was chastised for doing that one time by my immediate boss.
Of course.
Called me into his office, said, I don't know what you're doing. He was upset because I was doing a project for the CFO at the time. He said, I don't know what you're doing, but I don't like it. And you're going around me and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, I was sworn to secrecy because this was an acquisition that we were working on. And I was helping. And he got mad and he basically said, we're going to take your title, we're going to take your admin. He just stopped short of actually firing me.
Oh, yes.
So I said,
okay.
And I just came back to work the next day and kept working.
Okay, so you get to be CEO. I have a question. Did you have like a Mufasa looking over the kingdom moment where you drive past all the 7-Elevens and you're like, I control all these 80,000 7-Elevens or whatever? I was trying to Google how many 7-Elevens there are. And
close to 80,000 now. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Did that like psych you out? Like all these people's livelihoods are kind of in my hands?
No, when it first happened, it was obviously very exciting because it sinks in the magnitude of what you're taking on. And you vacillate back and forth. You have the natural insecurities of, am I really going to be able to pull this off?
Yeah.
Am I really worthy of this role?
Yeah.
Little imposter syndrome creeps in, even Mr. Confident, right?
Even this guy's got imposter syndrome.
It happens.
We all have it.
It happens, right? But you've got to fight through it because at the end of the day, you are good enough to do it. It's just a matter of focus and discipline and learning. You have to keep learning. So
you're at 7-Eleven. Things are going great. I also have a quick question about 7-Eleven. Is the IDEAL Slurpee like Coca-Cola and then just a little cherry on top? I need your expert opinion on this.
The IDEAL Slurpee, based on the learned experience of millions of customers, is to do a multi-blend.
Yeah, okay.
So is it layered? Just go every one of the...
Oh, every single one?
Oh, yeah.
Just like boom, boom, boom?
Boom, 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 yeah. The other thing you'll find, it's very popular on Friday nights to take a Slurpee in there and put a little...
I never thought you could do the like pina colada.
It's like a frozen margarita, yeah.
It is. It's like a margarita.
Yeah.
Whoa, okay. Yeah. Jim Keys is officially endorsing drinking at 7. Just kidding.
I'm just kidding. Mothers Against Drunk Driving will be all over me.
Okay, you know what I was thinking? Yeah, seriously. We're not... That was
not
a joke.
endorsing that. Not endorsing that.
But you know what I was
thinking? One could do that, but one should never do that.
Theoretically, that would be great. Theoretically.
Theoretically, yeah, yeah.
But when
Only
I was-
on a Friday night or maybe Saturday night.
And Sunday morning.
Yeah, well, that too. There is that.
But when I was thinking about this interview, I was like, wow, Blockbuster and 7-Eleven. Every Tuesday growing up, we'd go get a Slurpee. And then every Friday, Mom would order Domino's and we go to Blockbuster and pick out a movie. I was like, you looked over two days of the week out of my childhood and sponsored them and made them such happy memories. I like very distinctly remember on Friday nights going to Blockbuster and it just being an experience. You know, you'd walk in the fluorescent lighting and you'd see like the latest movie, like hoping like Cinderella story was there. And so you're at 7-Eleven, you exit 7-Eleven.
Yes.
Is that because they had an IPO or how did that work?
No, we sold the company in 2005 to the largest licensee, 7-Eleven Japan.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they had become wildly successful. They actually did a better job of transforming the business model than we had done here in the United States.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I was reading about Japanese convenience stores.
Fabulous. Yeah.
And they're amazing. You can do
They're
your
amazing.
taxes at them.
Yeah, and well, what happened is 7-Eleven licensed the brand, the company called Ito Yokoro, which was, they were kind of the Walmart of Japan, if you will.
Okay.
They licensed the brand from 7-Eleven about 40 years ago, and the timing was right because they were able to start with technology. At 7-Eleven, when I arrived, they had no technology at all.
Uh-huh.
So the Japanese licensee started with technology and took that technology to a completely different level. They completely reinvented the idea of convenience
Oh, that's
by
great.
building technology around just-in-time distribution systems and capabilities. So they have fresh sushi. It's hard to imagine.
They don't have that at my 7-Eleven, but they do
I
have
know.
taquitos.
Well, imagine restaurant quality sushi
Oh my gosh.
at every 7-Eleven that's delivered 3 or 4 times a day
Wow.
and made just down the street.
Wow.
It's a fabulous experience.
Okay, so you had a payout from 7-Eleven.
Oh, yeah.
So you were good to go for like the rest of your life.
I was good to go. I didn't need to work.
You didn't need to work anymore, but you wanted to work.
Again, yeah, it's not about just making money and then going, I'm a terrible golfer. I would never, if I golf too much, it becomes like work. It's like, oh, geesh. And so I wanted another challenge. I really loved
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster. Yeah. Well, I looked at 2. I looked at Radio Shack.
Oh, Radio
Interestingly.
Shack.
Yeah. And people say, you had to be nuts. Why would you want to take on Radio Shack?
I miss Radio Shack, though.
Well, I did too. And it was, if you think about the model, they were sitting on what could have been the Apple Store.
Totally.
But the technology agnostic. That's what I called it in my deck. But what they didn't have is the Genius Bar at Apple to help you make it all work together.
Experience. Yeah.
Right? To integrate. And so that was the vision, was to be able to take hardware, phones, computers, TVs, and software, Blockbuster, movies, bang them together and be able to have a fully integrated solution.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. That was where I was heading.
That's pretty cool. Okay, but you went
That was
the other
bold.
way. And so I'm curious,
Right.
when there's a call out for a CEO, do you just go into a job interview like everyone else with your resume?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because I didn't need a job, so I'd never looked at it as a job. What I started to do is partner with private equity firms to say, let me go buy something.
Oh.
So I was actually trying to buy Blockbuster or buy Radio Shack. So what I was doing is visiting with investors.
Yeah.
And then one of those investors called up Carl Icahn, who had been one of the big investors in Blockbuster, and said, forget about Radio Shack for now. Let's just do this at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And then later we'll go buy something.
Blockbuster is public at this point, though, right?
Oh, yeah. It was a public company. Carl Icahn was the lead director, or one of the large investors and a director at Blockbuster.
Tell me about how you got the job.
Well, I literally was sitting in this investor meeting, and he said, you need to tell this story to Carl. 20 minutes later, I'm in Carl's office, and he said, you need to come and just do this here. And here's the mistake I made. Instead of taking it private, in which case we would have refinanced $1 billion of debt at about 6%, which would have been fine.
Yeah.
Instead, Carl talked me into, let's leave it a public company. It's fine. Just come in and be the CEO.
Okay.
And I did that, but unfortunately, that debt that I could have refinanced in 2007
Great timing.
came due in 2009.
Oh.
And you remember what happened. In 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed. The
Yeah.
bank financial markets were shut,
Yeah.
and we couldn't get that loan refinanced.
Got it. Okay, so you show up, it's a mess. And what's the first day of a CEO at a new company, especially when they're struggling?
The first day as CEO, you walk in and you look at the financials and you say, okay, where are we? Let's understand the landscape. And then you learn and you get a call from one of your bankers, new bankers, that says, we're going to shut you down because they had defaulted on one of their covenants.
Okay.
Their
And
promise
this
to
is
the bank.
2007. Okay.
Yeah. Summer of 2007.
Okay.
And it was really, somebody could have told me this before I came.
I'm out. Bye. See you later.
I mean, I could have. It would have been a quick and easy exit.
Yeah.
But instead, I negotiated with the banks to give us forgiveness and wait until 2009. I wish I hadn't at this point, because if I had a crystal ball, I would have said, all right, go ahead, shut us down. Let's go ahead and file for bankruptcy now, and then we'll come out of it, and we would have been fine. But no, we got forgiveness, stayed the course. So that was the first day. Day two, not really literally day two, but the very next thing we did was to buy a streaming video company.
Movie Link, right?
Movie Link, yeah. It was a fabulous opportunity because the studios had decided they didn't want to happen what has happened.
Okay.
This fragmented universe of all these people doing streaming. Studios said, we want to control it. So 5 of the 6 studios teamed up, Sony, Warner, Paramount, and they created a streaming company, and they digitized 3,000 titles. So they were sitting on the most digital content that was available at the time.
Okay.
And they offered it to us exclusively. Exclusive.
Yeah.
Netflix would still be doing DVDs by mail had we completed that transaction.
Okay.
We acquired the company. We acquired the technology. We renamed it Blockbuster On Demand. So we had a huge competitive advantage.
Yeah.
What we didn't do was lock down that exclusive content.
Oh.
Because, and this is, anyone can challenge this business decision.
Yeah.
But no one knew how many years it would take for televisions to put the ability to stream.
Yeah.
They didn't stream on TVs.
Yeah.
For computers to have icons. So you could pull up the Blockbuster logo and the Blockbuster icon and get access to it. So streaming was very clunky, and we didn't know how long it would take for that to occur. $100 million commitment per year for exclusivity was more than my board could.
That's a pretty tough pill to swallow.
Pretty tough one.
I heard you mentioning just like a lot of like what people don't think about is back in 2007 bandwidth and it just wasn't there. It didn't exist. Like today, you go on Netflix and you watch a 4K movie. You could not do that in 2007.
Right.
So it's funny looking back, it's so clear, but in the moment it's just a mess.
Something as simple as an icon, right? On a phone. Apple launched the iPhone in 2007 and really introduced this idea of easy access to different apps. We didn't have apps.
That wasn't even a thing.
Wasn't even a thing. Yeah.
So looking back, so looking back, I guess you couldn't control that the recession was going to just completely obliterate the U.S. in the way that it did. Is there anything else that you would change about their approach when it came to the market?
I think they had the right idea. So even when I arrived, they had something called Total Access, which provided convenient access. Remember that? They had stores. They had by mail. If you didn't like what you got by mail, you take it back into a store. Big advantage. Kiosks. We had streaming capability. So there really, truly was total access. And the way I looked at this business, and the reason that I saw it as so similar to 7-Eleven, is really not about renting DVDs. It was about convenient access to media. Media entertainment. And so we had a fabulous platform, a very competitive platform to be able to offer convenient access to media entertainment. The balance sheet really is what killed us, unfortunately.
I think a lot of people think that a CEO is like the king of the company and they just like rule over everybody, but really you're at the mercy of the board, you're at the mercy of the shareholders. Can you talk a little bit about like what your day in the life of a CEO was? Like, would you roll in and check your email? Would you sit in meetings all day?
Well, first of all, to your point, I remember the first thing. I went home and I said, hey, this is great. I don't have a boss anymore. Oh boy, how wrong was I? It was a lot easier reporting to one boss through your entire career. Then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're now CEO and you have 9 bosses or
Yeah.
12 bosses.
And they all disagree.
And they all disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they all have to be communicated with.
Yeah.
And they all have to understand the strategy. And they all have different points of view. So, yeah, it was really challenging.
Yeah. So it's just a leadership role. So what would you say for anybody out there who's working on their leadership skills? Like, what is the most important element of being a good leader?
I think, bar none, it is adaptability, that understanding that change is going to happen. I'm going to jump to the clarity piece, though, and share a thing that I heard about Mark Cuban, because one of the biggest challenges people have is listening. A lot of times we're formulating the answer before we're even listening to the question. And so truly understanding the other person rather than just listening at the surface level. And Mark has this story that before he goes in, he was advised one time, I had a mentor suggest to him, when you sit down in any meeting, the first thing you do is write down on a piece of paper, listen.
Ooh.
And he said he still does that today.
Really?
To just remind himself. Mark is a lot like me. He's always thinking, his wheels are turning.
Yeah.
But if you don't take the time to listen, you'll never really comprehend. It's that clarity of communications, inbound and outbound.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to move on to the book while we still have time.
Sure.
Because this is absolutely fascinating to me. So I find that books aren't declarations, but they're rather responses to what you're seeing in the world. So I'm wondering, what is this book responding to?
It is responding to need. Sitting at the helm of 2 Fortune 500 companies, I came to realize that we have a supply and demand issue.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, the single biggest resource of most companies is people.
Okay.
And at 7-Eleven, I was having a hard time finding educated, quality people to put into even store manager jobs. Same challenge at Blockbuster. Yeah. And that workforce need is out there. And companies are sitting on the sidelines for the most part when state and local governments are responsible for education, particularly at the public school level.
Yeah.
So at 7-Eleven, I said, well, this isn't working for us, and we've got a problem with the supply. We're the demand.
Yeah.
And what would we do in any other circumstance? We'd go in and invest in fixing the supply chain. So my call to action in this book stemmed from my experience in 2 big companies saying, we've got a supply chain problem in the supply of educated workers.
Oh, I love that.
Let's invest in these kids.
Yeah.
And let's build a future workforce to be competitive globally, because if we don't, other countries learn from us. They're doubling down on education.
Yeah, I got to stay competitive.
We've got to stay competitive.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of narrative out there that, college isn't important, school's not important.
Yeah.
I'm out there with the opposite message saying, no, it's more important than ever before.
I love that. I love the conviction. And I think it's so funny when I was first listening to this kind of we call it a hot take. The kids call it a hot take. And you're kind of fighting an uphill battle here because a lot of the younger generations are like, yeah, don't go to college. Like college enrollment rates are going down and all this stuff, and tuition's going up. So I find that a lot of hot takes tend to have an emotional or personal story behind them. What do you think is at stake here if people don't understand what's inside your book?
I think that what's at stake is threefold. One, there are individuals that are going to suffer because they're going to listen to this noise out there and think they're fine. Because let's face it, you give a kid an excuse not to study, not to go to school, they're going to take it. I'd rather be out playing, right? Play basketball, play golf, whatever. And so the individual will suffer if they don't look beyond. And the subtitle of the book, The Future is in Your Hands, I mean that literally for the individual. That's the first risk. The second risk is for global competitiveness because we have to have a base of educated workers. The current public school system was built by the Rockefellers and the industrialists to train people, and they created this standardized system that's out there today. Yeah. Well, in the information age, we need an entirely new approach to teaching and learning. That's not going to happen for 50 years if we wait for state and local government to do it. So corporations have to step up and invest in technology to help transform education.
I love putting that on corporations. Yes.
Well,
they're
it's
going to move
fact.
quicker.
They're the demand. This is, like I said, it's a supply and demand problem.
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
And then the third level of concern, and the reason for the book, is that going all the way back to Jefferson, he was wise enough to speak to the importance of an educated populace, to the survivability, to the duration of a democracy.
Yeah.
Alexis de Tocqueville came over from France in the 1800s and said the same thing. America makes democracy work because they're committed to an educated populace. And that's the only way that self-determination can survive. So if we're going the wrong way in an educated populace, what does that say for our ability to sustain democracy and society going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, an educated, yes, that's the key word there. So I'm curious, obviously, probably the number one pushback you're getting is the price. So when you were going to college back in 1980, I was looking up the numbers, and of course you are probably familiar, but in-state tuition and fees at a public university in 1970, so before was $394 a year. In 2020, average in-state tuition and fees at a public university was $10,580 a year, which is a 2,580% increase. Of course, everybody wants to be educated. Of course, everybody wants to get a great education, but the price of tuition is astronomical. What do you say in response to that?
Two things. One, no excuse. There is more learning available with technology than ever before. You carry it in your pocket, in your hand.
Yeah.
Unlimited learning capacity. I didn't grow up with Khan Academy. If I had trouble with math.
I love Khan Academy, yeah.
Khan Academy is awesome. And there are more and more
Coursera,
free,
Google certificates. I'm always talking about them.
Yeah, there's so many out there that are free. It's access to everyone.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for the individual. Secondly, stepping back from it and looking at the cost of education, here's the way I look at it. Like any business, and I'm a business guy, I can't help but break it down into business terms. It's an investment. It's an investment in yourself. You would never buy a company and justify it based on today's dollars. So what do? You run a net present value of future cash flow streams based on, it's discounted back to today's dollars.
Yeah.
We don't do that for education. So we say, oh no, it's $80,000 a year. I won't make enough money to pay it back. But they're not looking at it as an investment. It's an investment in yourself. And you know it's the best part of that investment in yourself? It pays dividends for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Okay, so question about that. It's kind of a blanket, a blanket statement that having a college degree is going to pay dividends because I mean, anecdotally, I have lots of friends who even spent $250,000 on their education and they couldn't find a job. So what do you have to say for that? Do you think that's like certain degrees are just inherently more valuable than others?
I think knowledge is what's ultimately valuable. And at any given time, depending on where the economy is, somebody's not going to be able to find a job or not find the right job. But ultimately, the more you know and the breadth of that knowledge will prepare you, even if you have to learn another path. Maybe you chose the wrong path. And you, like me, I was going to be a lawyer. Had I been a lawyer, it would have been a disaster. But had I been able to recognize the power of knowledge, I would have pivoted, still gotten the MBA, and gone into business.
Okay.
So learning is never wasted, I believe.
Got it. Even if it costs $250,000?
Even if it costs $250,000, because, again, it's an investment that eventually will pay off. Not in today's dollars. Eventually, it will pay off.
If you were giving advice to an 18-year-old high school student, would you say you should absolutely go to college, even if it's just a general degree?
Here's what I would tell them. Strive for as much opportunity as you can. And then always you have that fallback. So even if you want to be an actor, if you can work hard enough to get into Harvard, go to Harvard, then go be an actor. Because that gives you more opportunity down the road. If you decide you don't like being an actor, you've still got a degree from Harvard. So I do encourage people to strive for the highest level of accomplishment and academic achievement that they can handle. And then look at other alternatives as a fallback. It doesn't matter how successful you are. you're still going to need somebody to manage your money. A
Yeah.
college degree will help you do that. You're going to have to, even if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have to apply for a loan. And when
Yeah.
you apply for a loan, they're going to say, well, give me your resume. Where'd you go to school? So for now, anyway, at this stage in time, now that will change down the road. With technology, we're going to have different ways of measuring intelligence, different ways of measuring, criteria for success. Today, I'm just coming from a very practical perspective.
I'm like you. I think there's like an ideal way things should be done. I love and hate the word should be done this way. And then there's reality.
Yeah.
Let's be a realist. This is how things are being done nowadays.
Exactly.
Having a college degree, the numbers don't lie, the data doesn't lie. It gives you a leg up in life. You will get paid more over time with a college degree. And that is also a correlation things sometimes too. I'm curious with the downward trend of requiring degrees for jobs, what you think about that. Do you think that we're entering this like new era?
No, I think we're in a bubble.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, Wall Street Journal just came out with this article that Walmart now requires no college degree for a big chunk of their jobs. And I'm sitting there from the perspective of a CEO, of a Fortune 500 CEO saying, with 3.5% unemployment, they can't fill those jobs. They have to waive the college requirement. So is it because they don't need educated employees or because they've got a problem filling jobs? Now, maybe it's a little of both, but my guess is we're in a bubble right now where you can go be a plumber and make $150 an hour.
Yeah.
And it's tempting for a lot of people, but we will go through another cycle. I've lived through several of them.
Yeah.
And if we're in another cycle where you have 8-9% unemployment and you don't have a degree and you're out fighting for a job, it could be very difficult. So it's again that practical perspective of be careful of the outliers saying you don't need a degree.
But I still have friends that are going to be paying off loans for 30 years, 35 years, and they're paying tons of money a month. And to an extent, it's personal responsibility.
It is.
And I think we need to do a much better job of educating 18-year-olds when they're about to take out $100,000 in loans. And we don't do a good enough job doing that. And there are alternatives, going to community college for 2 years or applying to all those micro scholarships. But then again, the rise of tuition in regards to wages and inflation is crazy to me, like totally wild. So I'm curious, if you had a magic wand, and could fix the U.S. education system, what would you do?
I would do several things. The first thing I would do is reinvent the way we teach and learn using technology.
Yeah.
We've done it with retail, Amazon, all of the online businesses that exist today. Yeah. We've done it with automobiles, with Tesla coming in and reinventing the way we look at efficiency and autonomous vehicles, et cetera. We haven't done it with education. We're still teaching and learning the way we did 150 years ago. Yeah. Blackboards and books.
Not much has changed.
Not much has changed, right. So the opportunity to transform education, especially now with AI, unlimited opportunity to modify the way you teach to the way people learn. Yeah. Because we all learn differently. So that's the first thing I would do is harness the power of technology. Who would I get to do that? Corporations, fix the supply chain, collaborate instead of every individual, Microsoft and Google, everybody having their own learning program. Yeah. Find an internet-like solution, a common platform so that we can raise the level of public education tools, engagement levels, et cetera. Cool. That's the second thing I would do. The third thing I would do is change the whole incentive system from scholarships coming at the end to, with blockchain technology, I reference this in the book. One day I will go do this if someone else doesn't do this. But with blockchain technology, you have the technical ability to take a 529 tax-free savings account and let corporations, let's say Deloitte wants to encourage people to be an accountant, they could give you 20 cents for passing a math exam. Yeah. And why not? And so you take that 20 cents, it's in the 6th grade, and put it in your 529 account, blockchain protected. Oh, yeah. And by the time you're a sophomore or junior in high school, you've got $20,000, $30,000 saved up, 20 cents at a time.
That reminds me, I was listening to Trevor Noah's podcast last week, and he was just making a joke, but it's kind of an interesting idea. He was talking about what if we NFT'd teachers so that they made like a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of where their students go. So you would like incentivize teachers to be, well, teachers are already great, but like even to be better teachers, because it'd be like, well, I want to teach the next Jeff Bezos, you know?
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of a funny idea. But anyway, that's very fascinating. Would you be a fan of tuition-free public universities?
I am a big fan of tuition-free public universities. I think community college we should, and many cities have found a way to do this. Dallas has done some great things.
Okay.
Other companies in cities have found a way to create a promise program, making community college free. I do think that should be a possibility because the bar is being raised by other countries
Absolutely.
now. Their graduation rates. China has gone from 40% to pushing 60% in graduation, it's post-secondary graduation rates.
Yeah.
We're going the opposite direction.
Crazy.
Yeah, and if we can at least provide that, as you said, community college can give you a great head start. If you lagged a little bit in high school, you can make it up in the first 2 years of community college and then transfer into another 4-year school if you want.
Yeah.
But yes, I do. I am a big believer in the importance of that post-secondary school, and I think we should be able to find a way to make it available.
I know the argument, it gets so political. People say, oh, people won't like appreciate college if they're not paying for it. And it's like, college is work. It's work and you're learning. I know at some schools it's more of a party, but it's not something that it's bad if people take advantage of it. It's education.
Yeah, exactly.
What's a piece of advice that you're happy you ignored?
Don't work so hard. No, it happens all the time. I mean, think about as a little kid. I don't know if you were one of these. I know. And then all your peers are like, brown nose,
Yeah.
cut it out, stop doing that. And the peer pressure will sometimes make you cave. Well, the workplace is just like that.
Yeah.
You find that all the time. People don't want you to work as hard because they're afraid it makes them look bad.
It makes me look bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious. So as somebody who has like decades of, work under their belt and like this incredible resume, you get to a point where you have convictions, where you have beliefs and you have principles. How do you balance that with being open-minded and constantly learning and like being open to new information?
I've got a whole chapter called Critical Thinking in the book. And I talk about the Socratic method of reasoning and really probing other people and why their opinion is what it is.
Yeah.
And just the simple question, why?
Yeah.
Socrates used to drive people crazy because he would challenge them. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you think that way?
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We just take it at face value, and you'll give me your opinion, and I'll go, oh, I don't agree with that. And now we've hunkered down in our respective positions.
Yeah.
When usually by asking the why, you can find some level of agreement about something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I encourage, we need that. We need more of that. There's so many echo chambers now.
There are.
If you meet somebody you disagree with, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And it's like, no, you should talk to each other.
Exactly.
You need to figure that out. And I noticed that with the summary on your book, you talk about the political importance of education.
Well, I'll give you another example. There's one of those now. We've got so many of these polarizing words today. So I turned on the TV the other day and they said DEI is DOA. I was like, ooh, ouch, wow, that's harsh.
That's catchy.
That's a little harsh. Yeah, it's catchy. It got some good clicks online. But so in the book, I talk about cultural literacy because now this whole idea of diversity being a bad thing, it's
like manufactured.
It's manufactured. Yeah, it's a talking point. It's a soundbite.
Yeah.
But what it's really about is understanding other people and having a recognition that I can learn more from someone who's not like me than someone who just grew up exactly the same, looks like me, sounds like me. What am I going to learn from them? They have the same experience as I have.
I mean, maybe it's me being a documentary filmmaker, but like I love talking to people who are so different. My grandma's from Texas. I went down, I made a documentary about her Texas town. She's from the Panhandle, totally, red little area of the country. And I'm just like fascinated because like I'm here in this liberal bubble in New York City and I go down there and people are living on the prairie and I'm like, of course they care more about gas prices. You know, they're using gas more than I am. So I'm totally with you there, completely behind you. So what do you think about the future of America for younger generations, and what are things that we should really fight for and prioritize?
I'm excited about the future America, because I think with all of the noise about millennials and all this kind of stuff, I think that there is more pent-up knowledge because of the exposure you've had to so much technology and so much learning now. So yes, the trajectory is going in the wrong direction for college, but the base level of knowledge of young people today is really inspiring. And I think you guys will be the next great generation.
Well, that's really nice to hear from the older generations, because I feel like there's generation warfare going on right now. And I'm like, guys, we're all part of the same generation.
I know.
On Earth at the same time.
I know. I hear it all the time. Everybody whines about, millennials, they don't want to work anymore. They don't want to do this. No, they have a different approach. They've got probably a better work-life balance than I had.
So thank you so much. The last piece that we do here is that I like to co-author a bit of advice.
Sure.
So this person writes, Dear Erin and Jim, should I stay or should I go? I'm at a company doing work I really like to do. It's my first job out of college. I've been here for 4 years now, working in graphic design. The pay is good. I'm getting my dream clients, doing great work that I'm proud of. But the company itself is at a standstill. I haven't had a bonus or a raise in over 12 months. They have a hiring freeze, and they've done a few rounds of layoffs, but in other departments like HR and management, the creative departments like mine have been spared. Should I leave to pursue a higher salary, or should I stay and hope that the company can gain momentum again?
Simple answer. Me first or you?
No, you.
Okay. I've been faced with that countless times throughout my career.
Yeah.
Those times that I stayed, I ended up coming out the other side of that crisis the company was going through in a better position.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do bail. And that means the people who stay and stay with it can come out on top on the other side. Now, my personal criteria, this is not recommending that you put on blinders and say, I don't care how bad the company is, I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
Are you growing? Are you learning? That was my personal threshold. As long as I still, and sometimes it requires you taking on more responsibility. So I would raise my hand. I know you have to lay off people. I'll do 2 jobs.
Yeah.
And as long as you're learning, then there's no downside.
Yeah.
Even if the company folds and you have to go somewhere else, you learned a lot in that process. So that's my advice.
I completely agree. You're either learning or you're earning.
Yep.
Preferably you're doing both. I would say stick it out for maybe 6 more months. And if it hasn't changed, maybe just see what the market rate is. There's no harm in just throwing your resume out there and seeing what the demand is. But I think there's a lot to be said about enjoying your job. I don't think it's all about money at the end of the day. It's about, like, if you're getting paid enough and you really love the job, I think there's like a monetary value to enjoyment. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was a fantastic conversation. Please go buy Jim's new book, Education is Freedom. Is it available just everywhere, Amazon? And
it is. All the retailers. I hope it's in stock. I'm an old retailer, so I get really annoyed when I go into a bookstore and my book's not in stock. But
and where else can people go to follow and support you and connect with you?
At J Keys Author. I've been having a lot of fun with TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, you've been very hip.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. I just did this fun thing last week. I was in a zero gravity flight with Charlie Duke, the Apollo 16 astronaut.
No way.
Yeah, literally, he invited me to go promote the book, so I was able to toss him my book in zero gravity.
No way.
Yeah, great fun.
Oh, that's fun. And do you own an airplane?
I do.
What kind of airplane?
I own 3 airplanes. Well, they're like shoes. You know, you have different shoes for different occasions, you know?
I mean, yeah, I have 3 airplanes.
Yeah. No, one's for aerobatics. It's an old World War II trainer called the T-6 Texan.
Do you watch Band of Brothers?
Yeah.
My husband's like really into the season right now.
Those guys were really amazing. Just amazing. Yeah, so I've got an old World War II trainer, cockpit open, scarf around the neck, you know. It's great fun.
That sounds like fun. I'm going to stay on the ground for now, but that sounds like a lot of fun. Well, yeah, thank you so much for joining. Everybody, go buy Jim's book. I mean, talk about challenging and enlightening. I'm so excited to dive into this one.
Please, when you buy the book, I hope you won't buy it and stick it on a shelf somewhere. Please give it to someone who needs it. Because we all know those people who are, in the middle of a decision. What do I do next? And I think you'll find a lot of advice and help and hopefully inspiration to help you find a better path.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was fun.